जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा
जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा
चक्षुदान दिलो थे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित
प्रेम भक्ति जागा होइते अविद्या विनाश जाते ओ प्रेम भक्ति जाहा होइते अविद्या विनाश जाते
ओ वेदे गाय जाहर चरितो वेदे गाय जाहर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनार बंधु
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनार बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनार बंधु
लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवन लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवन लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवन ओ हा हा प्रभु कर दया दे हमारे पाद छाया हा हा प्रभु कर दया देह मोरे पाद छाया हा हा प्रभु कर दया देह मोरे पाद छाया Ebejas gusuchi buvana Ebejas gusuchi buvana Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Ha ha Prabhu karo doya De hamare padachaya
आहा प्रभु करो दया दे हमारे पादा छाया
Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ke Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Om, everyone. Vishnu Padaya. Srimate Bhaktivedanta.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Everyone raise your arms in the air. Dance nicely. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Oh, Shri Advaita.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Oh, you heard me? Over there? Bagicha, Radharaman Bagicha.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
They sound like they're coming. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Bala bala. Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Mridanga.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Dana Bala Bha Girivara Dhari Jai Jaya Gopi Dana Bala Bha Girivara Dhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Ravana Chade Yamuna Tira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Everyone can clap, please. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachare Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Shyam Sundar Radha Shyama Sundar Radhe. Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai, ISKCON Vrindavan Guru Vrinda ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Agyantimirandasya Ginandana Shalokaya Chakshuran Militam Hena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutade Swayam Rupa Kadam Hayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Bhutai Mahatpirima Puro Vibhur Nirmaya Kshatira Mushupurusha Bhungte Gunan Sadasa Sudasatmaka Yalang Krishista Bhagavan Vacham Sime. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Shyama Sundar ki jai. Hare Krishna. So, it's my great honor to speak in front of so many exalted Vaishnavas, including Srila Prabhupada's direct disciples. And of course, it's the most important part of Srimad Bhagavatam, because the climax of Srimad Bhagavatam is the 10th canto. This is why Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken. And the most important part of the 10th canto is Panchapadhyaya, 5 special chapters which deal with the most confidential pastimes of the Supreme Lord. I don't know how I ended up in here. But in one sense, I'm glad that we're not discussing the pastime itself. Today's verse will be away from that, because that pastime is too emotionally charged for myself. But we'll be reading from actually the topmost chapter of those topmost part of Srimad Bhagavatam, Rasa Leela, chapter 33, the Rasa dance, and today we'll be reading and discussing text 29, I would say one of the most important texts in that chapter, so I'm only counting on your blessings to do it justice, to explain it properly. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Dharma Vyatikramo Drishta. Dharma Vyatikramo Drishta. Ishvaranam cha sahasam. Ishvaranam cha sahasam. Ishvaranam cha sahasam. Tejayasam nadoshaya. Tejayasam nadoshaya. Vane sarva bhujoyatha. Vane sarva bhujoyatha. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Dharma Vyatikramo Drishta. Dharma Vyatikramo Drishta. Ishvaranam cha sahasam. Ishvaranam cha sahasam. Tejayasam nadoshaya. Tejayasam nadoshaya. Bhane sarva bhujoyatha. Bhane sarva bhujoyatha. Please. Vyatikramo Drishta. Sahasa. Ladies, please. Sharanam cha sahasa doshaya Chamadrishta Synonyms: Sri Shukovacha. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, Dharma Vyatikramaha, the transgression of religious or moral principles. Drishtaha, sin. Ishvaranam, of powerful controllers. Cha, even. Sahasam, due to audacity. Tejayasam, who are spiritually potent. Na, does not. Doshaya, lead to any fault. Sane, Bahne, of fire. Sarva, everything. Bhujaha, devouring. Yatha, as. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shukadeva Goswami said, the status of powerful controllers is not harmed by any apparently audacious transgression of morality we may see in them, for they are just like fire, which devours everything fed into it and remains unpolluted. Purport: great, potent personalities are not ruined by an apparent transgression of moral principles. Sridhar Swami mentions the examples of Brahma, Indra, Soma, Vishwamitra, and others. A fire devours all that is fed into it, but the fire does not change its nature. Similarly, a great personality does not fall from his position by an irregularity in behavior. In the following verse, however, Shukadeva Goswami makes it clear that if we try to imitate the great personalities ruling the universe, the result will be catastrophic. Hare Krishna. Shri Shuka Uvacha Dharma Vyatikramo Drishta Ishvaranam Cha Sahasam Tejiyasam Na Doshaya Vaner Sarva Bhujo Yatha. Shukadev Goswami said the status of powerful controllers is not harmed by any apparently audacious transgression of morality we may see in them, for they are just like fire which devours everything fed into it and remains unpolluted. So, of course, in one sense, it is very unfortunate that Srila Prabhupada was not present with us long enough to finish the whole Bhagavatam. But in the other sense, you know, the devotees, Srila Prabhupada's disciples who finished his work without any tinge of doubt, fully imbibed his mission and spirit. So we're practically getting the same value from these texts and purports. One Prabhupada disciple, Dadi Bhaksha Prabhu, appreciated my respect towards Prabhupada disciples despite of being sannyasi. But I was thinking that it should be rather natural because, in my humble opinion, whatever it's worth, Prabhupada disciples are one of his greatest parts of his legacy, probably compared only to his books. Because how could we understand properly Srila Prabhupada's books if we would not have a wonderful example of those who've been personally trained by Srila Prabhupada, like Shrutakirti Prabhu here, and many others, perfect Vaishnavas who are like desire trees. I was sharing with Pachagoda Prabhu that I dreamt that someone would make a perfect audio book of Srila Prabhupada, and he fulfilled my desire. Now the audio books of Srila Prabhupada available with his own reading. So I'm very grateful to him for that. And nevertheless, we would like to hear something Srila Prabhupada speaks on the topic, is it not? Anyone would like to hear what Srila Prabhupada explains on the topic? Yes? So with your permission, I wanted to read something coming directly from Srila Prabhupada on this verse. Funny enough, I bumped into it just by chance, if there is such a thing as chance in Krishna consciousness. So, actually the topic in here is, well, let's connect it to the previous verses, because the description of the pastime was interrupted by Maharaj Parikshit's question. If Krishna wanted to establish Dharma, and Dharma, one important part of Dharma is not to mix with other people's wives, right? And why Krishna himself is doing that, and of course Maharaj Parikshit was not asking this question for his own benefit, but he saw so many other people in the audience who might have doubt about this point, and so he wanted Shukadeva Goswami to clarify. And this is the clarification given by Srila Shukadeva Goswami, and actually it is going on for few verses, and this is really important for us because it's Rasa Leela. It's the topmost pastime of the spiritual world. And anyone remembers what is the topmost pastime, most popular pastime of the material world? How Srila Prabhupada defined it? No one remembers? Rascal Leela. So, spiritual world means Rasa Leela, material world means Rascal Leela. And unfortunately, as long as we are in the material world, there is a risk of us to be, attracted to Rascal Leela, even though we might be practicing Krishna consciousness. And so, and using the excuse, yad yada chariti shrestas tat tatarvatarojana, right? Whatever great personalities do, others follow the example, follow the suit. And so Krishna was dancing with other people's wives, so why can't we do that, right? And lust, being all-devouring enemy of this world, is not so easy to overcome. And so that's why this is such an important question Maharaj Parikshit was asking, and that's why the answers given by Shukadeva Goswami are so important. And basically speaking, what he says in here, that the great personalities can do what other people cannot, right? Especially even though we might feel bad, how come that he can do that, I cannot. What's wrong? But yeah, everyone has to act according to his status, right? I'm not sure how appropriate it is to quote Latin in Bhagavatam class, but I remember from my childhood that, pastime from Greek or Roman tradition about the earth looking so attractive that Jupiter became attracted to earth, and Jupiter is, of course, in our tradition is Brihaspati, right? And so, but he could not, deal with earth in his body, because that would be a wrong thing to do. He would be accused of, being too lusty. So what did he do? He took the shape of a bull, and of course, earth is always depicted as a cow. And so, as a bull, he stole earth, right, to enjoy. And so, the maxim which is connected to it, if I still remember it correctly, quo licet Jovi non licet bovi, what is appropriate for the Jupiter is not appropriate for the bull, and vice versa. So whatever bull can do, Jupiter cannot do. Like that. So, powerful people can do what other should not even try. And then, of course, next verse is like a nuclear blast for all of us. Naitat samacharet jatu manasapi hyanishvara, that no one should, very powerful words. Shukadeva Goswami says, na etat, this should never be samacharet, done, jatu, ever, manasa api, even in the mind. So it's like in English we say, don't even think about it, right? So this is what basically Shukadeva Goswami says. Don't even think about it to do what great people are doing, because if you are not the great personality, do not imitate. And so I'm just mentioning that because this particular quote from Srila Prabhupada, given in Los Angeles in 1968, December 23rd. As far as I remember, this is class on the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I have to check, but anyway. This is what he says. We cannot imitate. We can simply follow. Anukarana, anusarana. There are two Sanskrit words. One is imitation and one who is following. And one who is following the footprints, basically. First one is to imitate. Second one is to follow properly. If one tries to follow the footprints of great personalities, that is very nice. But we cannot imitate. Imitation is dangerous. Just like Lord Shiva, he drank an ocean of poison and he kept it on the throat. He did not allow it to go down. So therefore his name is Nilakanta. It became bluish. His neck is blue. But if somebody imitates Lord Shiva and indulges intoxication, ganja, he'll go to hell. He is powerful. Somebody says, well, Lord Shiva is a smoker, so we can also smoke. No, you cannot imitate. You can simply follow. Just like the sunshine. The sunshine is so strong that it is absorbing the moisture of the filthy place, contaminated place where one is passing stool and urine. But still it is sun, because sun is so powerful. But if you live in that place for some time where urine and stools are thrown, then you will be contaminated immediately because you are not powerful. Tejiyasam na doshaya. So reference to our today's verse. Tejiyasam na doshaya, just to remind you, means Tejiyasam, those who are spiritually potent, they can never be at fault, can never be blamed for transgression of the standards. Those who are powerful, if somebody does something which is very extraordinary, that is not to be imitated. You have to follow the rules and regulations. That will give you progress. Don't try to imitate. Just be in your position, try to follow the rules and regulations, and chant Hare Krishna, and gradually you'll get result. There is no need of being hasty. Very interesting. No need of being hasty. Do not rush, right? Too much. Otherwise, if someone is in rush, then fall is very likely, right? So, proceeding with care, that's the idea behind. And of course, I mean, tomorrow's verse will be specifically pointing at that, and I'm very glad, you know, as Dharmatma Prabhu said, Dinabandhu Prabhu will be giving tomorrow's class. So, I mean, I'm little nobody here, but, you know, he can do the proper justice to this topic. But I think it's worth of more than, you know, few minutes of Srimad Bhagavatam discussion, because the tendency to imitate, desire to imitate someone who is higher than us is so strong, right? And my conclusion is that every single problem we have in our society is only because of that desire to imitate, right? Of course, ultimately, whom do we try to imitate? Krishna, right? Because this is why we came to this world, to try to be Krishna. So, of course, Srila Prabhupada had amazing maxim on this. Krishna is God, and we are not. So I think these are two most important things to understanding Krishna consciousness, right? Krishna is God, I am not. You know, just look at yourself in the mirror. Do you have a peacock feather? Are you blue? Etc. You know, we're not Krishna. So, but despite of that, it is still much easier to understand that Krishna is God, that I am not, because the tendency to imitate is so strong. And why this topic is so important, because, you know, going back to the very beginning of Bhagavatam, we know that there are 4 legs of the bull of Dharma, right? Everyone remembers them? Satya, Daya, Tapashuchi. And for our day and age, what is the last remaining leg of Dharma which we can count on? Satya, right? It's truthfulness. Interesting that devotees are called Satam. Sadbhave, Sadubhave cha. So, you know, one cannot be a devotee without being truthful. Of course, we don't mean that we need to be fanatically truthful. That's also condemned in Mahabharata, for example, if you remember that episode when Arjuna was trying to be truthful and killed Maharaj Yudhishthir just because he told him to drop Gandiva. And Krishna had to preach to him that for this kind of truthfulness he might go to hell. So, we have to actually differentiate between mundane truthfulness and spiritual truthfulness. But at the very least, we need to be truthful with Krishna, right? Because even with devotees, sometimes it's troublesome, right? You tell something confidential to some devotee, and next day you'll see it all over the social networks. That could be a big problem. So we need to be also very careful whom we can afford being truthful and whom we may not afford. But the principle of truthfulness, the details of truthfulness, can be adjusted according to the circumstances, but the principle of truthfulness is this: we should never imitate, right? And Prabhupada was very emphatic about this point. I don't know how many of you heard his story about a veterinarian, the animal doctor, right? One who is treating animals. And so he had one disciple, and he was a very famous doctor. And this disciple was taking his training, and one day this doctor, he was called to check on the horse, and the horse had very serious swelling on the neck, kind of big lump on the neck. And this doctor came and he checked the horse. He opened the horse's mouth, looked inside, and then he said, "Bring me a hammer." Possibly it was Russian doctor. They like to fix things with hammers. So, and I think in India it's also very popular. So, and he took the hammer and he, hit the horse's neck with the hammer. And suddenly the swelling went down, and the horse was lying already, ready to die. And the horse went on its legs and ran off. And everyone was surprised. What a miracle healing the doctor did. Just with one hit of the hammer, he treated that horse. And then that disciple of that veterinarian, he said, "Gurudev, I think I've learned enough to start my own practices." The doctor said, "I don't think so. You have to learn more." But the disciple insisted, so he left the doctor and he started his own practices. And then the rumors came back to the doctor that this disciple is going around villages killing animals with hammer. The doctor called the disciple and he said, "What are you doing? Why are you killing animals with hammer?" He said, "Guru Maharaj, I'm trying to treat them exactly the way you've treated that horse. I'm hitting them with a hammer, but so far I haven't been successful, but I suppose I need more practice." And the doctor said, "You're completely stupid, because what I've done in that situation was not a standard treatment procedure. Because when I looked into the horse's mouth, I saw that it's not a lump, it's not a swelling, that the horse consumed a melon, and the melon got stuck in horse's throat. And so I broke that, and the horse was suffocating because the melon was choking its breathing. And I hit the melon with a hammer, and the melon was broken and went down, and horse started breathing normally. But you thought that this is a standard procedure." And so That's why, we cannot imitate, we cannot just do things great personalities do without understanding. There are 7, I think, most important questions we need to know the answer to, right? What are these? What, who, where, how, when, how much, and why, right? And so unless we know the answers to all those questions, we can't really do the right thing. And so that's why we cannot imitate. And imitation is connected to untruthfulness, and of course why we are saying that this topic is so important, because the entire mission of Srimad Bhagavatam, as it is highlighted in its first verse, because the very first verse of Bhagavatam is just Mangala Charanam, right? That Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya with elaboration, right? So it's just a Mangala Charana. But what is the next verse after that, which is effectively the very first verse of Bhagavatam, says, Dharma projete kaitavatra paramonir matsaranam satam, that this scripture is specifically meant for uprooting kaitava dharma, cheating in the guise of religion. And it's meant to establish paramo, the topmost dharma, right? Which can only be understood by satam, devotees, truthful people, satam, but not all the devotees. Those devotees who are nirmatsarana. What is nirmatsarana? Matsara? Envy. So those devotees who are free from envy. Not even all the devotees are capable of understanding and appreciating Bhagavatam. Only those devotees who are free from envy. And so basically, the envy, jealousy, whatever we call it, is the main reason for trying to imitate. And of course, this is like such a vast topic, of course, imitating Krishna, etc. But I wanted to have a little discussion with the devotees, because there are so many senior, experienced devotees. In my little observation, all the troubles our society ever went through, and imitation can bring a lot of trouble, is primarily coming from the attempts to imitate Srila Prabhupada. Because Prabhupada, Prabhu means, one of the meaning of Prabhu means Supreme Lord, right? And Pada means position. One who assumed the position of the Supreme Lord, empowered representative of the Supreme Lord. And if we try to imitate him without understanding why and how and all the other questions, he was doing what he was doing, basically we are ruining our own spiritual lives and other people's spiritual lives. Spoiling so much of the hard work so many other devotees were doing, trying to convince and encourage people to take up to the process. And so the discussion I suggest we could have is, what are the different ways we might try to imitate Srila Prabhupada without understanding his mood, his spirit, and his purpose behind what he was trying to do, behind his activities. We have Shrutakirti Prabhu here with long experience of Srila Prabhupada. He could say so many things, but anyone else would like to contribute? Panchagoda Prabhu is ready to discuss at any point, any topic. Of course, he meditated on Bhagavatam for years.
When Prabhupada suddenly passed away, I think that in our immaturity or time, place, and circumstance, maybe not wanting to imitate, but try to assume what Prabhupada had intended for us to do, how to do it. And of course, many people have made a lot of mistakes, and generally, there's a learning curve to the new society. So we're like 45, or I mean, how many years since Prabhupada left? 48, 47 years. And of course, we're maturing and experiencing what works and what doesn't work. And you're right, imitation is no good. But at the same time, it's I think the troubles and tribulations of a growing society of immature devotees who are trying to become mature, but maybe prematurely mature.
Prematurely matured. Thank you. Yeah, prematurely matured. It's like a fruit which, ripens too quickly, right? And if you check, this fruit is always rotten. Only the fruit which ripens naturally is good. But yeah, too quick, too soon, it's always rotten. Please.
You would know better than most of us, coming from Russia, how they treated Prabhupada's disciples when they arrived, 20, 30 years ago. I know going to the festival in Ukraine, in Russia, you were treated in such a way like Srila Prabhupada. And what happens is you start to think, this is very nice, this is very nice, I can do this, but you can't do this. But I had a question. You said how Srila Prabhupada said Rasa Leela and Rasko Leela. So how we can't imitate Krishna, we follow. What is the example that we follow with Krishna?
Well, that's a really tough question from Shrutakirti Prabhu.
That's why I'm asking.
I'll try my best. And others might correct me if I go wrong. So, yeah, my understanding is that imitation is motivated by pride, which is, of course, the first demoniac quality listed in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And following is done out of humility, so in a humble mood. And so if someone is proud, then this attitude of knowing better than anyone else and being better than anyone else and not requiring any guidance, basically speaking, that comes into the play. But if someone follows, then one will always check with the devotees and try to see if what I'm doing is really bona fide, etc. Because, yeah, in one sense, all living entities are extensions of Krishna's senses, right? And basically, the entire bhakti process is only meant for one thing: to learn the art of harmonious relationships with others, right? Because spiritual world is the world of total harmony. Everyone is in the mood of serving Krishna and his devotees, and that's why there is total harmony. Everybody wants to serve, nobody wants to be served, right? Including Krishna himself. Funny enough, how he says to the cowherd boys, just stay here, take your lunch, I'll go myself, find the cows. So even Krishna himself is in the mood of the service. And so, but in here, material world means the mood of domination. And of course, as you mentioned, Srila Prabhupada, just to, achieve his purposes, he had to assume that dominant mood, dominant role, but being very humble inside. And so, but if we try to imitate, assume that dominant mood without the core humility he had, that is imitation. Yes.
When Krishna left, the gopis were envious of the other gopi that Krishna went with. And also sometimes if you mention Chandravali and her gang, the other gang are upset. So how is their envy of each other and unharmonious relationship on a transcendental platform.
Thank you. That's a very good one. So, yes, as far as I remember, Srila Prabhupada describes it's transcendental, it's spiritual, because material world, envy means malice. But in the spiritual world, there is no malice. You know, there are no, like, ill feelings. And one gopi sees, is that the right word? Malice? And so, one gopi is seeing another gopi doing something wonderful for Krishna, and she is thinking, wow, I'll do even better. So they have this, you know, competition spirit, but there is no malice. There are no ill feelings towards each other. So we can say it's a prototype of, you know, the pure form of envy, but it's not. It's not envy. It's based on love. And that's why, in one sense, Srila Prabhupada was saying that envy is absent in the spiritual world. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Just earlier you were mentioning the fact that imitation of the Guru, but Srila Prabhupada is the founder Acharya of ISKCON, and this means that he teaches us by example. So if we want to follow Srila Prabhupada's example perfectly, we can't interpret it, and Prabhupada always said you should never try to jump over the Guru. So we follow diligently his instructions, and by following his instructions we will achieve the perfection where we become qualified to instruct other people to follow.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, very good point.
Sometimes we see that a not very qualified devotee spiritually, maybe not very elevated, accomplish very important service. That happened when Prabhupada was on the planet. An example is George Harrison. One time on a morning walk, people were criticizing George Harrison, and Prabhupada was there. They were saying, oh, George Harrison smokes cigarettes again. Prabhupada says, no. He's a very nice boy. So George Harrison, he did a very important service. He paid for the Krishna book, $19,000. There's another example in Giriraj Swami's book. Prabhupada had difficulties obtaining permits to build a temple on the land. For 1 year they were trying, they were always failing. But then there was an acquaintance, a person around the devotee. He said, oh, you have to bribe them. If you bribe them, then you can get the permit very quickly. So Prabhupada, after discussion, they give him money. And he came 2 days later, he wanted more money, they gave him more money. And a week later, he came with a permit. Prabhupada was overjoyed. After finally 1 year of struggle, he got a permit. And then he told this person, you're going, because of this service, you're going to Goloka Vrindavan. And the person says, no, not me, Prabhupada. I know who I am. I'm a very sinful person. I'm not qualified to go back home to Goloka Vrindavan. And Prabhupada said, I will take care of that. Do not worry.
Haribo.
So sometimes we may be disqualified in many ways spiritually, but it's still not a disqualification because it was sometimes a chance. Or we can discuss that we can accomplish some important service, even though we're not very qualified.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really good point. That those who are, the trouble with this world is that those who are really qualified, they think they are not, and those who are not, they think they are qualified. If that point is rectified, everything will be perfect.
What I experienced with Srila Prabhupada is like Shruti Kirti's always saying, even on his deathbed, people would come and Prabhupada would say, do you have prasadam? Do you have a place to stay? That even though he is the spiritual master and his body is in bad condition and has many responsibilities, he was concerned about all of us. I experienced this when I was only 19 in South Africa, and the Swami I was with left me alone and took the money. And when I wrote to Prabhupada, he wrote back very quickly. And he encouraged me by saying that I am praying to Krishna that you all have the strength and enthusiasm to carry out this mission. And he said, I am very much pleased at the responsibility you've taken to spread Krishna consciousness in South Africa at such a young age. And the next letter that came, I had a receipt for $700 because when Rishi Kumar Swami showed up, Prabhupada said, you left that young boy all alone and took the money with you and left him with a $15,000 debt to the book fund. So he actually collected part of that money. And I wouldn't have dreamed of asking Prabhupada, can you please find him and try to collect some of the money? But he actually did. And so he went out of his way and he kept trying to send people. He asked Brahmananda to come to be with me, and Brahmananda was turned back at the border. Then he asked Duradarshan, and Duradarshan was hard to find or hard to see, so he disappeared. And eventually he asked Pushta Krishna Swami. So I saw that even though he was busy and I was insignificant, he was very concerned that I was there alone and took many steps to make sure that it went on.
Haribo. Thank you. Yeah, these stories are very encouraging, how personal and caring Srila Prabhupada was. Forgiving, tolerant, amazing qualities. This is what it takes to preach Krishna consciousness effectively. Thank you. All right, so we have a few more minutes. Ladies, oh no, someone else at the back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for your class. We understand that at the stage of sadhana bhakti, we are trying to imitate or emulate or copy the practices that the devotees at the stage of bhav bhakti are naturally practicing, because the goal of sadhana is to attain bhav. And so we do that for the advanced devotees is natural. For us, we are just trying to copy. Like, okay, we should wake up early, chant our rounds, and so on. Like we heard from Shrutakirti yesterday or a few days ago that he said, oh, Prabhupada is staying all day in his room, I'm staying all day in my room. Prabhupada is waking up early, we are waking up early. So it seems also there's a positive connotation to trying to imitate or follow. So how do we differentiate that? What kind of imitation is prejudicial to our growth of bhakti, and what kind of imitation is healthy for our spiritual growth?
Yeah, of course we all are imitating to an extent, because it says fake it until you make it, right? So I can say about myself that I'm not really a devotee by any stretch of imagination. I'm only practicing Krishna consciousness, not very successfully. So I'm only trying to become a devotee, but, you know, faking to be a devotee, hoping that I will become one day. So, but yeah, it's very similar to Shrutakirti Prabhu's point that as long as we are guided by mature devotees, you know, spiritual master, other senior Vaishnavas, who can tell us, okay, this we can do, but this will be very destructive for our spiritual life. Then, as long as we are under the guidance, we are safe. Basically speaking, this is the idea. But if we think we know better, then this is the beginning of the end of our spiritual lives. And, you know, do you want to hear one news story about the dangers of imitation? There was one king and he heard a nightingale. You know, nightingale is a bird which sings amazingly sweet, you know, songs. And the king was fascinated by the nightingale, and he was coming to that part of the forest specifically to hear the nightingales singing. And he was so appreciative. He, on the golden tray, he was bringing the best grains to feed the nightingale. And so one crow saw that scene and decided, oh, king is so appreciative of this nightingale because the king never heard of my beautiful singing. And so one day when the king came to listen to the nightingale, you know, this crow came, pushed the nightingale away and started, you know, making its crow sounds. And you know, the crow was in ecstasy, thinking that king will, you know, appreciate me very much. But the king was so annoyed, he said, catch this stupid crow and bring it here. And so the servants of the king went to catch the crow, and crow didn't even try to fly away because the crow was thinking, oh, now they will take me and bring me to the king and I'll get much bigger reward than the nightingale. So the crow allowed being caught. And when they brought it to the king said, pluck out all the feathers of this stupid crow and let it go. Make sure it doesn't disturb me anymore. So they did that, and the crow became, you know, like featherless. And then, you know, other birds were coming to the crow asking, what happened to you? And the crow was saying, it's all the fault of this nightingale. If the nightingale would not sing, I would not try to follow him. And I would not lose my feathers. Hare Krishna.
Sri Kirti Prabhu had a question. He wanted to know, how is it that being born in Russia and growing up in Russia, you know so much American slogans and so many things so well, even better than us? KGB. Are you KGB or?
Well, I studied to be an interpreter, but I lived in UK and I traveled a lot in English-speaking countries. So, and I had a lot of association with wonderful devotees like all of you. Hare Krishna. So thank you all very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande.
It's only Bhakti Rasayana Sagara Swami ki.
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Jagannath will play.
I can sing
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,